Whether you like it or not, we all live in bubbles. Where you live, who you surround yourself with, what you do, who you watch, everyone has a bubble. But most people's bubbles are destroying their chance of making any progress. Now you either choose your bubble or your bubble chooses you. And if you don't think you live in a bubble, then your bubble has chosen you, and this is a very dangerous place to live. A lot of us right now are living in this constant state of anxiety, stress, and distraction. No one wants to be here. No one wakes up in the morning and goes, today I want to feel anxious, I want to feel stressed, and I want to be distracted. No one wants these emotions. However, the way that we've created our bubble guarantees that these emotions are going to appear. When we think about a bubble and we're talking about where we live, who we surround ourselves with, who we watch, what we're really talking about is a lot of external stimulus. It's really the way that we've created our environment and how we interact with our environment. A lot of us live in bubbles that look something like this. You wake up in the morning and you instantly pull out your phone and start scrolling social media. You're seeing the edited highlights of hundreds of other people and you compare it to yourself. Obviously, you don't feel so good about yourself. You get a bit anxious, a bit stressed. After a while, you might check the news because you have to stay up to date with what's going on because that's what you're told to do. Now in the news, you see there's a bunch of deaths, there's some wars going on, World War III is going to happen, so you get pretty stressed and anxious about that as well. You know you have to work, so you sit at your desk and you start working for a bit, but after about 20 minutes you reach into your pocket and you start scrolling because you've developed a little bit of a scrolling addiction that is kind of getting in the way of your work. As you scroll, you see about 50 more edited highlights of people's lives, you compare it to yourself and you don't feel so good. However, while you're scrolling, you encounter something pretty interesting. A new update in the war that's going on. This makes you pretty nervous and pretty concerned. You're worried about the next world war starting. This makes you feel incredibly anxious. It's getting towards the end of the day and you're feeling pretty exhausted. You've spent all day sitting at your desk working and you think, well, I could go to the gym, but I need to relax. I need to recharge the battery. And this new season of my favorite show is coming out and I really enjoy the world that they've created. I want to explore that a little bit more. You finish up your TV show, you put your head on your pillow and you call it a day. You wake up the next day and you need to know what's going on with all of your friends, with the new updates for the war, so you check your phone and you start scrolling again. This is the bubble for the vast majority of people right now. This bubble guarantees that you will be anxious, you will be stressed, and you will be distracted. These are also three things that no one wants to have in their life. So why do we create a bubble that guarantees these three terrible emotions all the time? What if you could create a bubble where you weren't anxious, you weren't stressed, you weren't distracted? In this bubble, you're very peaceful, you're very focused on your goals. It's all very fulfilling. This is very possible, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. Now that we know that we live in a bubble, and we know that we probably haven't actively chosen it yet, and it's probably not so good for us, we can choose to create a bubble that we actually want to live in. Now I want us to think about our bubble like it's a garden. Right now your garden is full of weeds. It's full of junk that's making you stressed, it's making you anxious, it's making you distracted. There's three things that we have to do to make this the perfect garden and the perfect bubble to exist in. First thing we need to do is we need to de-weed the garden. Right now, your bubble is full of junk. It is full of things that are making you anxious, stressed, worried, distracted. We want to clear it of everything so that there's nothing left but clean, fertile soil, an incredible base for you to start to build the bubble you want to build. The next step we're going to do is we're going to define our North Star. You need to know exactly where you're going. You need to orient yourself properly so you know the trajectory you want to go. Because a bubble is only effective if the bubble helps you move towards something. But if you don't know what that something is, then it's very hard to create a bubble. Third thing we need to do is add the seeds of growth. Now that you have clean, fertile soil, you have a clear North Star of where to go, it's time to actually create a garden and create a bubble that you want to live in, moving you towards the goals, moving you towards the person you want to become. What you'll notice when you create this perfect bubble is you're now living in a place with full goal alignment, maximum focus, far less anxiety and stress. You now live in a place that actually helps you move towards your goals rather than actively destroying them. This is exactly where we want to live. Let's go through the steps right now so it makes much more sense. Step one is to de-weed the garden. So a lot of us have a garden and a bubble that looks something like this. As you can see, there's a lot of holes, there's a lot of weeds. What this means is that if you try and start to add a new project, you try to start to add a new goal, you try to start working towards your goals, you're going to find it very hard because there's not a lot of space for you to do anything. Your mental space, your stress, your anxiety, your time, it's all filled with a lot of crap, a lot of weeds. The very first thing we're trying to do is clear this garden completely. Because when you have a blank canvas, when you have fertile soil, when your bubble has nothing in it, what happens is you can start filling it with the right things. But before we start filling it, we have to remove the weeds in the first place. I think a really important thing to think about here is, what am I worrying about and can I control the outcome? If right now, a lot of the things you worry about are outside of your control, you cannot influence the outcome, you're adding a lot of unnecessary weeds to your garden. If I ask you right now, why do you keep up with politics? You might say, okay, I want to know what's going on, I want to keep up with it, but can you influence the outcome? Can you influence global politics? Well, no, probably not. Are you going to change your life in any way from consuming this stuff? Not really. Okay, so why are you worried about it? Because this is clearly adding a lot of stress and anxiety. These two emotions are in direct conflict with your goals. Why am I focusing on this stuff? Why am I consuming social media? Why am I looking at the edited highlights of other people's lives? Am I really keeping up with anything, or am I just getting anxious, stressed, and worried? There may be some benefits to these things, but when you think about the fact that you're significantly hindering your mental state, you're becoming stressed, you're becoming anxious, you're becoming distracted, these don't add up. Really look at where you're allocating your attention, because right now a lot of us have a lot of weeds in our garden. A lot of our attention is being allocated to things outside of our control. We're stressed, we're anxious, we're worried, but we can't influence the outcome. Because guess what? We can stress and worry about a lot of things that are going to impact our lives, but if we can't do anything about it, it does not serve us to worry about these things. I could be worried about the sun exploding and everyone on Earth just instantly being evaporated, but how does that help me? How does it help me to be stressed, anxious, and worried about the sun exploding when there's nothing I can do about it? Well, it doesn't really help me whatsoever. It might be logical to worry about these things, but if you can't influence the outcome, does it need to be in your life? Does it need to be in your bubble? And if we can create a bubble which is a blank canvas, it is fertile soil, there is nothing there but you and what you want to produce, who you want to become, it's a much better place to be than a bubble full of worries, concerns, and fears about lots of things outside of our control. So the very first thing we're trying to do here is just strip it back to nothing. Really see what happens if you pay attention to absolutely nothing. Because what you'll notice is that very little about your life changes. In fact, your life probably gets a lot better because your mental state gets a lot better. Now that we have a clean garden, we have fertile soil, we don't have a lot of things draining and pulling our attention, we have a good base. But the next thing we have to do is create our North Star. A lot of us don't know what we want to do. We don't have a specific North Star, a specific direction for our life. And what happens is we end up having 50 different goals in different directions and we don't know where to go. If you don't know where to go, then how can you create the right environment? The right environment is an environment that makes it very easy for you to move towards your goals and very hard for you to move away from your goals. But if you don't know where you're moving, then you can't orient your bubble and you can't orient your environment properly. See, a lot of us right now think, okay, well, maybe I want to be a lawyer. But maybe also I want to start a dropshipping business, and maybe I also want to start social media marketing agency, and maybe I just want to be a professional marathon runner, or maybe I just want to travel the world. I don't know what I want to do, and if you don't know what you want to do, it's very, very hard for us to create this bubble. What we need is one specific goal. One end goal, one target in mind. Now, this isn't just any goal. This has to be your main life goal right now. This should be something that you can be working on for the next 20 years, the next 30 years, the next 40 years. Not something that you're going to achieve in a few years and have to move on. This has to be the rock that orients the rest of your actions and orients the rest of your life. This North Star is different for everyone. There's no correct answer, but this is also why everyone's perfect bubble is different. Because if everyone's perfect bubble is the same, I would just say, do this, do this, do this, do this. But everyone has different goals and objectives in their life. But the one thing you don't want to have is no goal and objective. You just have hundreds of different ideas, things that might happen. but you haven't thought about what your life looks in 10, 15, 20 years. And if you don't know what that life looks like, it's very hard for us to move forward and create the perfect bubble. So this is a very, very important step, and this might not be something that you can do in the next 5 minutes. It might take a lot of thinking. You might already have your North Star, but being very, very clear and specific about what this looks like is very important for allowing us to orient this bubble properly. Now we have a clean garden, so we don't have things in our life that are making us anxious, that are making us worried, that are pulling our attention, that are not moving us towards our goals. And we have a North Star, so we know exactly what our goals are. The next thing we have to do is plant the seeds of growth. At the end of the day, the seeds of growth are just actions. They're just inputs that you have to do. Just like scrolling social media and keeping up with politics and watching a bunch of TV shows, these are all actions. The seeds of growth are actions, but these actions are oriented towards your North Star. So if you look at it like this, you have your North Star. You have fundamentally where you're moving towards, and now you're planting seeds of growth. You're adding actions, you're adding behaviors that are constantly moving you towards your goals. Now, the more of these behaviors that you add that move you towards your goals, the faster you're going to move towards your goals. The more that your environment, the more that your bubble is oriented and centered around this North Star, the faster you move towards this North Star. Now, for a lot of people, you might think this is the goal, but I actually think that's wrong, because this assumes that your North Star is the only thing that you have in your life, the only thing that you want. And this is going to get you to your goal faster than anything else. You will achieve this outcome, but if you want more than one thing, for example, if your North Star right now is a financial goal, I want to make $100,000 a month, and everything you do just helps you move towards earning $100,000 a month, you'll probably get there. You'll get there quicker than you would have not doing this. But if there is more to your life than earning $100,000 a month, then you probably want to plant some other seeds and maybe add some other quests. So for most people, your bubble is going to look something like this. You're still going to have a North Star. You still orient most of your inputs towards that North Star, but you might have a few extra goals. These are generally side quests. These are things that you want to add to your life that add a bit of flavor, add a bit of dimension to you as a person. Rather than just the guy who earns $100,000 a month, you're the guy who earns $100,000 a month and runs marathons and speaks 5 different languages, right? You're creating more depth to your character. Now, if you want to be the GOAT, if you want to be the best, you cannot do this. You just focus on one thing. This is why the best people in the world at anything just do one thing. They don't have anything else. But do you want that life? That's up for you to decide. But if you want more elements and layers to yourself as a person, then you probably want to add a few things, a few little side quests. Now, I wouldn't say just add these because you can, because I need layers to my character. What I would do is I would start out creating a bubble and orienting everything towards your North Star. And over time, these side quests, these extra layers to you, they're going to become apparent. They're going to become obvious. There's no point rushing and forcing this, because if you do that, you're going to end up like this. You're going to end up having lots of different areas, but no specific North Star. We want a clear, obvious North Star. We want a place to orient all of our actions, orient the way we live, the way we construct our life. And then over time, we add in the side quests. We add in the things that are going to add layers to our character. Now, this shouldn't detract completely from your North Star. Best case scenario, it supports your North Star. But these are going to add layers and also make your life just more enjoyable. If you end up living like this person, where you just focus on one thing and you just try and be the GOAT, it's going to be a hard life. There's going to be a lot of mental challenges. I believe that if you try and orient yourself towards a main big quest, you put most of your energy into that, but you also have a few other objectives that are going to contribute to you as a person. I think most people are going to want to end up in this camp, but again, it's up to you. So when we look at our ideal bubble now, we don't have any weeds. We don't have the constant anxiety and stress. We're not worrying about things outside of our control. Our attention, our focus, our inputs, our actions, they're going towards either our North Star or a few side quests we've added along the way. This environment is an environment that does not have anxiety. It does not have stress. Everything in your environment, everything in your bubble helps move you towards your big main goal, helps you move you towards your side quests. What you'll notice at the end of most days is that if you've been very productive, if you've moved towards your goals, you probably feel the best. You probably feel amazing. The days where you try and just do things to feel good, the days where you just sit on the couch all day and eat pizza, you don't really feel good at the end of the day. You feel like crap, realistically. But if you live in a world where you're constantly oriented towards your goals, you don't need to be working on your goals 100% of the time, but your attention, your focus is isolated towards your goals, towards your main quests and maybe a few side quests, you're living in an environment where not only are you going to absolutely crush your goals, but you're also going to live in an environment which is very clear, it's very peaceful. You know what you're doing, you know what the end goal is, you know where you're orienting all your actions. And this is a much nicer place to be in than the constant stress and anxiety. It's also a lot easier and nicer than having 50 different things that you might want to do and having no clear trajectory on your life. One clear North Star, not allocating your attention to things outside of your control, a few little side quests. This is how we create the perfect bubble where the clarity is there, the focus is there, you know what you need to do, and you're doing it. Now, the reason I'm sharing this system with you is because I've implemented this. I've used this exact system to create a world, to create a bubble that I'm very, very happy in, that I'm having a lot of fun, enjoying a lot, moving towards a lot of goals. Now, this all started at the end of 2024. Around that time, I decided, okay, I'm gonna live without any online entertainment by myself. I'm not gonna consume any politics, any news, any social media. I cut off connection to basically everything except for my one goal, my one North Star, and that was to be an online entrepreneur. That was my one goal. I just had that one thing. So I'd cleared the garden completely and I'd found my North Star. For the first month, this is all I did. I lived like the goat that I told you about earlier. I just focused on one thing. This was my only thing in my life. This lasted me about a month, and then I decided, okay, I want to add a little side quest. I want to add another thing. And that thing for me was I want to get in really good shape. So I really started focusing a lot on the gym, dialing in my training, my sleep, my diet, all of that. This became my second big priority. Now, this lasted me about a month or so. And then after that, I decided, okay, I want another endeavor. I want another side quest. So I started running. So this was around month 3. I had my North Star, which was being an online entrepreneur. This took up the majority of my time, energy, and attention. I had getting in good shape. This was a small side quest that took a few hours a week and some small changes to my diet. Then I added running, which was, again, just a few hours a week that I added in. This was me until about month number 8. Now, by month number 8, I had run about 3 marathons, 2 or 3 marathons. I'd got in pretty good shape, and I thought, okay, it's time for me to take on a mental quest, a mental challenge. Bear in mind, this is month 8. This isn't straight away. I didn't add all these things at once. This was 8 months later. I decided to add in Spanish. I decided to add in language learning. So from that point forward, I spent 4 hours a day learning Spanish, and this took me another 7 months. So 7 months later, up to month 15 now, and I decide, okay, I'm finally gonna add another quest in. And this quest was becoming a digital nomad. This wasn't really a quest. This is again just a small change in lifestyle, change in environment. Hopefully it would develop me as a character and a person. Again, not taking up a huge percentage of my bubble, but adding another layer to the character. So this brings us to today. 15 months after creating the perfect bubble. The bubble has not changed much whatsoever. I've added a few little side quests which don't influence the bubble all that much. I still have the North Star, which is being an entrepreneur. I spend a few hours a week running, a few hours a week going to the gym. I don't really think about these things at all. I know what I have to do, so I just do the inputs. Don't think about it. I have a few hours a day, which I'm learning Spanish. Again, I just put the inputs in. I'm not thinking about it, not paying attention to it, just doing it. And I'm gonna live in a few different countries. Realistically, the bubble hasn't changed that much. My North Star stays the same. The majority of what I think about, the majority of my attention goes to the North Star. I put a little bit of time, not a whole lot of attention to a few different side quests, and that's it. I'm not thinking about politics. I'm not thinking about social media. I'm not worrying about a single thing outside of my control. And it may be a bit weird. It's definitely a bit different to what most of us are used to doing, but I'm not anxious. I'm not stressed. I'm not worried. All I'm thinking about is moving towards the North Star and hitting a few different side quests along the way to make me a more diversified, a more interesting character. All right, so you want to implement this system. There's a few things I think you should do to avoid making big mistakes. The first one is just adding things too quickly. Adding too many goals. If you add too many things, you end up looking like you did way back in step 2, where you have a bunch of different goals, no clear trajectory, no clear direction. The reason that we tried to clear the garden in the first place is because you're losing your attention to so many different things. You're worried and concerned about a lot of different things. If you continue to add a lot of different goals, then all you're doing is splitting up your attention again. This is why we do these slowly. When they occur, when they happen, when you add these goals, add these side quests, it should be obvious. You should know, okay, this is the next step. This is obviously what I want to do. You're not just adding things for the sake of adding things because I need to be a diversified character. You want to do these when they make sense. The next big problem is not clearing out your garden properly. Still having holes in your bubble, attention leaks, areas that you're worried about in your life which you shouldn't be. If you're going to create the perfect bubble, there should be nothing outside of your control that you're worried about whatsoever. Because as soon as you start worrying about things outside of your control, there's no stopping it. It just keeps expanding. It's like pulling a thread. It just keeps going and going and going. Once you open the little rabbit hole, it doesn't end. You're really trying to seal this up so that you just have an environment that is safe for you to dial in and lock into your goals, not getting drifted away, not getting your attention pulled away to lots of different things that you cannot influence whatsoever. The third problem is just not having a clear North Star. Now, you might not know this straight away. This is probably going to take some time. Knowing your North Star is a very important thing, but not knowing your North Star means that you don't know how to build the bubble. Because the very first thing you need to do is know exactly where to go. So this is the thing that you might need to spend the most time on, but you want to be very, very clear what your North Star is. It should make sense in 10 years, in 20 years, not just this makes sense for now. The North Star is the most important part of all of this because it's where you actually bring yourself. How you're creating your bubble is determined by where your bubble is taking you towards. If you want to go deeper in creating systems exactly like this that let you execute consistently towards your North Star without relying on motivational willpower, then you can join the Modern Monk community. I'll leave a link in the description below for that. I have a challenge for you. The definition of learning is same condition, different behavior. If you've watched this entire video and you haven't changed anything about your behaviors, you haven't learned at all. I would start with clearing out your garden, making sure there's not a bunch of different things in your life that are pulling your attention, making you anxious, making you stressed, that you can't control whatsoever. It's a very important place to start. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to find your North Star and eventually create the perfect bubble. I have a video about creating a pretty insane productivity system, creating a bubble for yourself in the first few hours of the day to get everything done by about lunchtime. If you want to check that out, I'll leave that up here somewhere. So I'll either see you in that video or in the Modern Monk community. Cheers.